Maxine Waters, in light of the new immigration policy presented to us by President Trump, had some interesting things to say in her latest interview with John Berman, host of the New Day show on CNN. On Friday, she gave her take on how she felt about this new policy. Actually, let's go to the video. I think Matt, you heard it. I don't think Deshaun has heard her response, right? I don't think you've heard it, right, Deshaun?
No, I'm not even familiar with Maxine Waters.
You're not familiar with her? Okay.
No.
So let's go to the video and see what Maxine Waters had to say about Trump's new immigration policy. Let's go.
I want to ask you.
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I did want to ask you about the president's Rose Garden event yesterday, where he proposed changes to legal immigration, changing the ratio between those admitted because of family connections here, and as he puts it, a merit-based system. Now, we didn't talk about the Dreamers, and I know Democrats say no deal if we're not getting anything on the Dreamers. But Dreamers aside for a second, would you be open to some changes in who is admitted to the country legally?
Well, we need comprehensive immigration reform that takes into consideration those people who are in the country illegally, takes into consideration whether or not there would be employment efforts or where people would not necessarily be given, citizenship status, but there would be some way by which they could supply labor to help with our economy. I think that all of these things should be taken in consideration. Asylum, those people whose lives are threatened, all of these things should be taken into consideration. There should be comprehensive immigration reform, and not immigration reform that is based on exciting and inciting those people who have negative thoughts about others coming across our border, and basically working to use that information to promote himself in a campaign. And I think it is some of that is very racist. It is not keeping with what this country is supposed to be all about. It is not what our Statue of Liberty pretends.
What exactly, just so our viewers know, are you saying is racist there?
Well, this business about you must speak English, we're going to give you points for speaking English. And we don't want poor people. We only want those people who are earning substantial wages already. All of those things are not keeping in step with the way that we treat human beings. And even the fact that, he used to talk about chain migration when you were able to help others in the family come. He's going to limit that. And I think that some of those policies are racist.
There you go. So Maxine Waters said quite a few things there about the new immigration policy, how it incites negative feelings and violence towards those immigrants that are coming here, or the illegal aliens that are coming here, and how that having a merit-based system, meaning that you have to have some good merits behind you in order for us to begin to consider you into coming into our country, is racist. So Maxine Waters feels that Trump's immigration policy is racist. Let me just go real quickly over Trump's new policy proposal. Okay? So first of all, Trump, according to, what article was I reading there? It was in, I think it was the Daily Caller. Read an article there. Trump said this: our proposal is pro-American, pro-immigrant, and pro-worker. The president said during an event in the White House Rose Garden. And he says it's just common sense. And the proposal focuses on two major things: border security and merit-based immigration. Border security meaning a border wall that covers about 33 strategic locations, modernized ports of entry, expediting immigration court proceedings and removal processes, and then a self-sustaining border security trust fund generated from funds collected on border crossing. All right? The president says that he promised that asylum claims will be expedited, stating if you have a proper claim, you will be quickly admitted. If you don't, you will promptly be returned home. And then the other portion of it is the merit-based portion, meaning more visas to younger immigrant workers, have to have valuable skills, have an offer of an employment before they come into the country, have an advanced education, earning higher wages, and they have to be financially sufficient, speak English, and pass a civics exam. And this new visa thing is called Build America Visa. But according to Maxine Waters, all of these things are racist. So I want to know, Deshaun, you're someone that was born here, but yet you have immigrant families because you're Cape Verdean, but you were born here.
Yeah.
So you being here legally and not having the experience of immigrating, whether illegal or legally, but you know families that are probably here, either illegally or legally, they've immigrated from back home. How do you feel about her saying that this policy is racist? How does that make you? What are your views on that?
I mean, so I'm just hearing about this. Honestly, I haven't been able to look up Maxine Waters, but based on her logic and her merit of choice, this doesn't seem to me at all racist. This seems to me more of something that is securing America's workforce, America's social standing, and making sure that anybody who enters this country is somebody who is able to work and provide for their families. Another way I would view it is certainly a way in which we can regulate and have security of who and what is coming into this country.
And you said something interesting, that it secures America's interest. And you said that organically, not even knowing about all the details of this.
No!
Because Trump said this, random selection, meaning if you just let random people in, is contrary to American values and blocks out many qualified potential immigrants from around the world. And this will bring us in line, meaning this new policy, with other countries and make us globally competitive.
Yeah.
So you're right, it is coming from an America's interest, this new policy point of view, because we have to protect our own interests. So Matt.
Yes.
And I'll go back to you, Deshaun. Matt, and you're someone quite different from Deshaun because you're white, as we can all see. You were born here, but you might have immigrants in your family that immigrated here, right? But your family members that came here are coming actually from a better country than opposed to someone like me and Deshaun. We're coming from a third world, poorer country. But you might have a different perspective because your immigrants are coming from a place where they're not really needy. They come from a good country. Portugal's a decent country. I think it's better financially than the Cape Verde Islands or some of the other countries that these immigrants are coming from. But so how do you view this? Do you agree with Maxine that this might be a little bit racist? I mean...
Well, I don't think it's racist for a couple of reasons. One, it's not excluding a specific type of people.
Yeah.
The other thing is most other modern nations have some sort of qualifications that you have to meet before immigrating to that nation. I remember a few years looking back, and it might be even worse now. I was looking into certain countries, whether it be Australia or Japan. Even Canada has some strict qualifications. Even Mexico itself has some qualifications as well that needs to be met. But some of these countries require a degree, $5,000 in the bank, proof that you can take care of yourself and your family if you immigrate to that nation. So I don't see this being racist at all. I just think that's her nature is just to kind of call everything racist. As far as my family history, you did point out that, I'm Portuguese, so my family did come from Portugal. I will note that they came from the Azorian Islands, which is a lot, especially during the time that they immigrated, was a lot poorer and was not treated the same as mainland Portugal. So they definitely did come here for financial reasons, but they came here legally. In fact, I know my grandfather actually came here first before he was able to actually get his wife over here. So he had to come here, do all the legal paperwork, make sure that he could establish himself financially, and then complete the process of bringing his then wife over.
But would you say, though, compared to some of the illegals who are getting here, that their circumstance, the people from the Azores back in your day that you're talking about, I think they're probably a little bit better off or in a different sort of frame of mind, I would say, than...
Well, they're a little bit better off in the sense that they're not dealing with drug cartels and things like that.
Okay.
As far as poverty levels, I would say probably the same. So, maybe a little bit better off, but probably not much more better off. But the point is that they came here legally. And I just don't see that the current what the Trump administration is trying to do, how that's racist at all. Setting up some qualifications, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, and I want to piggyback off that, Matt. You know what I mean? I mean, just like anything else, when you go for a job interview, when you go anywhere, I mean, there's some qualifications that you need to meet. And I think that we should, as a nation, have qualifications for people who are going to come into this country, especially if they're going to contribute to the society or live in the society we have built here in America. I feel like there has to be some kind of qualifications for that. I don't feel like you should just be able to just march into this country with no kind of background, no kind of check, nothing that helps to benefit the future of America. So I feel like if you're coming into this country solely to take and to not give into the society in which America's built, why in this case would we allow something like that or people like that to come into this country to ruin what America's built? No, because that's not what we're here to do. We're here to better the country. If you're in America and you've contributed to society with taxes, with your family values, with your own family here that lives here, you're looking out for the security and the financial security of your own household by having these qualifications for immigrants that are coming into the country.
And what Maxine Waters is trying to do is she's trying to make it seem like I had mentioned earlier that some of these countries, they require like a real valuable skill in order for you to be considered to go there.
Yeah.
She's trying to make it seem like this proposal is going to make it so that anybody who is poor or doesn't have a college degree won't have the opportunity to come here.
Yeah.
When in fact all it's saying is that you based on the merit system, you have a better chance if you have some sort of skill. We have a large, I'd say, a vacancy of hard labor jobs that require a skill that a lot of these people are able to fulfill. They don't need a college degree to learn to be a plumber or carpentry or do other forms of hard labor. They're willing to do that work, and that would count towards being a skill that they're able to do. They're really more concerned about people coming in here with terrible backgrounds. But Maxine Waters is really trying to make it seem like we just don't want poor people to come in this nation. And that's not true, because our nation was built on immigrants. It was built on the backs of hard labor from all sorts, whether it be the Irish, the Chinese, the blacks, the whites, whatever. So she's trying to make it seem like this new proposal is going to eliminate. If you're poor and you don't have a high value skill, like you're not a doctor, so you're not going to get in this nation. She's just fear-mongering at this point.
Well, I think what the Trump administration is doing, they're trying to less burden the country with the burden of immigrants that come here and they can't provide or self-sustain for themselves.
Right.
That puts a taxing and a burden in our system. And I will say this, guys, it is racist if you have a disenfranchised mentality, if you have a victimized mentality, if you have entitlement mentality, right? It is racist because when you have that kind of mentality, none of those standards which make sense to the average person, the common sense person, none of those standards make sense to you if you're in that situation. You will just say it is racist. And that's what the Democrats and Maxine Waters are trying to pull. They're trying to pull that kind of card on people to make them all wild up and emotional and not be able to reasonably think about this. And they want to pull on that emotion. Listen, I get a lot of people, like I'm Cape Verdean. A lot of us came here through chain migration for work. A lot of you talk to a lot of these different cultures. They'll come here, they'll stay with illegal visas, and they're trying to get people to marry them. So I've seen a lot of that. So I understand where they're coming from. There is no standard. They just want to come here and find the loopholes that are in the system and use it. And if a politician is out there saying what Maxine Waters is saying, that's okay to them. Because when you're desperate and you just want whatever it is that you want, nothing that's good that makes sense you will hear. You're only going to hear people like Maxine Waters.
Of course, and I mean, think about it like this. I mean, people are more self-preserving than ever. So I mean,
exactly.
If somebody wants to get into this country and wants to go through any loopholes, they're going to find it and just use it and maximize that to their own benefit.
And the Trump administration is just identifying those loopholes and kind of securing it. Evaldo, you brought up a good point about taxing the nation. I want you guys to think about this. In the span of 2 months,
Yeah.
okay, not counting legal immigration, we allowed in 168,000 illegals in the span of 2 months. Now, I want to put that into perspective because the population of the city of Fall River is about 80,000. So, in the span of 2 months, we allowed uh, basically two Fall Rivers to enter this nation. That major influx of people in such a short period of time, we're not talking about 100 people. We're talking about 168,000 people just pouring into the nation. And then all of a sudden, schools have to deal with that. All of a sudden, hospitals have to deal with that.
Yep.
And I know that it's easy for us because we're all the way up here in Mass and we get this mentality, oh, it doesn't affect us, so why do I care? But you kind of have to be compassionate to the people who are living in those border states who are dealing with that massive influx.
Yeah.
Think about that. The entire city of Fall River times 2 just walked across the border and is now living in the United States.
And I mean, it's to say to that is just it's amazing how much the Trump administration gets scrutinized. And I mean, in many cases, for people who are just looking for loopholes in the system, of course they're not going to like that the country is actually tightening up its immigration laws. But for anybody in America who's listening and really wants to understand the fact that this country actually needs a safe and secure border immigration system that allows for good people to enter this country, not just illegal aliens who are coming here to cause problems, because some of them do come here to cause problems. As much as people love to shed light that, oh, everybody that comes into this country is great and they're going to help America. America, that's not true. A lot of the people that come to this country in many cases, and some of them, I'm not going to say all of them, but some of the people who come to this country are not going to do us any good. Some people are going to come and just use us, just use the American system, abuse it. Some people are not even going to contribute to the society.
If you're a liberal, you think that this country is evil already, and we owe it to the world to let people in.
I'll give you.
Oh man,
I'll give you an example. Deshaun brought up a good point with people obviously using the system. So if people know that they can come into this country illegally, they're going to do it. So that's why we're seeing such an uptick.
Yep.
And surgery, because they want to get in before those loopholes are closed. I'll give you an example of what's going on in the UK. The UK has this policy where they have universal healthcare, and they have this policy where if something happens to you while in the UK, they have to cover it. So what was happening, because the United Kingdom has some pretty loose relations with India, people from India were so-called vacationing in the UK, and while they're vacationing, they would go to the hospital and they would get their procedures done. So if somebody needed to get heart surgery done, they would go to the UK, get the procedure done, and not have to pay anything, and then go back to their home country. Those were ways that they were abusing it. I'm not saying that that's what's happening now, but we obviously know that there's instances where illegals are getting food stamps. They are getting resources. They are getting stuff that they need.
And you're nicer than me because I think that's exactly what they're doing. Right. You're nicer than me.
You're way nicer than me. Well, I mean,
I know the game, man.
Well, I try to look, the good side of people. I try to think that there are some people here that actually want to make a good living and do living. But unfortunately, I do know people personally that will work under the table.
Yep.
And they will obviously not report, not pay taxes, and then also on top of that receive EBT cards and other forms of welfare. Their rent getting paid. It's disheartening for somebody like me. I know I'm white, so I have all this white privilege.
Yep.
But it's disheartening to me that I have to work a full-time job to pay for my family, and then on top of that get a second job, work part-time. Because I can't qualify for any assistance. Now, I don't make buku bucks. I really don't make a lot of money. But it's disheartening to go to a place like Market Basket and see people with massive carts filled to the brim with all this food, and then they whip out the EBT card, and I'm over here, I can barely afford milk and bread. I guess that's my white privilege.
Don't you know you owe it to the world because of your white privilege, Matt?
I know.
You owe it to the world, man. You owe it to the world.
It seems to be working out.
To not be able to pay
check
for
out
milk
this
and
stat,
bread.
guys. Check out this stat. So Trump said that the proportion. Check out this statistic right here that I just saw. Trump said that the proportion of visas that go to highly skilled immigrants will jump from 12% to 57%, meaning that we were having 12% of only highly skilled immigrants coming in. It's going to go from 12 to 57. That's a huge jump.
Yeah.
So what were we letting in before?
Everybody.
We were letting everybody.
I mean, the Obama administration was flying people in.
So what are some of those countries that actually have really good, strict immigration policies?
Australia, Japan, Canada, and even Mexico has a pretty strict immigration plan. That's why the people pretty much bypass Mexico and go right to the U.S.
So I want Maxine Waters to be consistent and use her same logic and call those countries racist as well. That's okay.
Yeah. Okay.
You can call America racist, but keep that same logic and intensity to other countries.
I see where you're going with that.
Don't just put us on blast. But you tell those countries they're racist too, because they have better policies than we do.
Well, if you remember, not too long ago, well, it was towards the end of Obama's presidency, Australia didn't even want to take in refugees and made a deal with the United States to take over 5,000 refugees. But nobody blasts them.
Because the attack's on America, guys. There's an attack on the American system, the American values. And it's amazing how the Trump administration is tightening up on some of these immigration laws, and the Democratic Party is still attacking the very country that we want to protect and we want to preserve.
Yeah, and what really ticks me off is when people say, "Oh, you have to have compassion." I understand that, but compassion has to be on two sides of the aisle here. Yes, have compassion. Let's listen to these people who are actually seeking asylum. Let's weed out the bad guys. But we have to have compassion for the people who are coming in here legally, who are spending lots of money and time waiting on a list to get here legally. And then when they come here, they don't get the assistance that other people may get. So we have to have compassion on them. Then we have to have compassion on the American people who are paying for all these things. It's coming from somewhere. So as a compassionate Christian, we have to be compassionate on all sides. I get that.
Yeah. And I believe, I want to I'm sorry to cut you off, man, but I want to add to that because many people think that compassion always has to be this place in which we hold people or we help people. In many cases, compassion is telling somebody, no, you can't enter the country because you are not qualified to. I would argue that that's compassion. Because when you come here and you try to take from the American people in many cases, and then you have people who will abuse the system and abuse things, and then you have people come here legally, like you said before, and waiting on a list to get here, and yet can't get the assistance they need, can't get their visas, can't get through, and yet the people who are abusing the systems or getting through the loopholes are benefiting greatly.
Right. And it's not compassion, Maxine Waters, and those of you who think this way, to exploit the weaknesses of those that are trying to cross over here because they see loopholes and they put themselves through dangerous situations because they know that they have a chance of staying here. It's not compassionate to let them go through that and put themselves in danger and their children with all the cartelling, the sex trafficking, all that stuff that goes on.
Yep.
That's not compassion.
No.
They're exploiting that. But I'll end with this, Matt. I like what you said. Heaven also has a strict immigration policy.
It does, yeah.
Oh, heaven sure does.
Yeah.
If you guys think that Jesus Christ was just this Leonardo da Vinci painting of some effeminate, really beta male looking dude and just loves everybody and lets everybody in and everything's all just fun and dandy, no. He's got a very strict immigration policy in heaven. You better believe it. I like when you said that, Matt. That was a good thing that you told somebody one time.
Yep.
An exchange on Facebook, I believe.
You know, people may not like it, but heaven itself has walls. It has a strict immigration policy. If you don't obey the gospel of Jesus Christ, you're not going to make it to heaven. That's just the way it is.
Hey, I got a wall around my my yard. Am I racist?
Yeah, according to Democrats, you're very
According
racist.
to Democrats, you are a racist, sir. But you know what?
No, according to Democrats, I'm an Oreo. I'm not racist. They can't be racist.
Tom,
I'm
right?
an Uncle Tom.
I'm
a victim of white supremacy thinking.
Yes, yeah.
All right, I'm all done, man. What do you